I enjoy doing them. We've done them for years. I think we've done them from the moment that PFT went live, November 1, 2001. Yes, the 20th anniversary is looming. And, people disagree. They want to see their team higher, no matter how good or bad they may have looked in a given week. They always make the argument they should be higher, except when they give up on a team and then they say, please put them lower to send a message. This week, Chris, Buccaneers still number one, not a surprise. A lot of movement, though, because, hey, I acknowledge I had some teams too low. Steelers were too low. I moved them from 14 to 5.
They had questions,
Cardinals were too low.
Right.
Cardinals went in and kicked the you-know-what out of the Titans. If you're at 25, I had you too low. You move up. Conversely, the Packers, hey, if you're going to show up low energy and get the crap kicked out of you by the Saints on a neutral site, you're going to fall from 4 to 15. That's the way it works.
Yeah, I got no problem with that. Yeah, the one that we talked about the Cardinals, I think, last week a little bit. Yeah, man, I think you're probably even a little low. But either way, I think where you had some teams low, there were some legitimate questions there to justify what you were thinking. So, and looking at it right now, listen, we got a lot of questions from your fans and everything like that. Let's get to it, because I think they bring up some of the questions I got just naturally here.
Let me just say this, though.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Chargers now?
Oh.
As compared to last week?
No, I feel...
You had questions about the Chargers.
I did. I think we played a clip earlier from my podcast. The thing that jumped out and will change me about the Chargers a little bit is the way the offensive line looked. That was supposed to be the biggest, baddest D-line in football. I mean, they didn't get close to Justin Herbert. Not even close. His numbers on third down, what were they, 14 for 19 on third down conversions?
Yes.
I mean, that speaks to it itself, telling you he had clean pockets to throw the football. So we know they got talent. Now I see that, and, I go, damn, I think I was low on the Chargers as well. So good for you for bumping them up. I don't know if I would have bumped them up quite as high as you did, but I'm not going to be be at you.
Yeah, I didn't move them. They were at 8.
Oh, they were there already.
They belonged at number 8.
Yes, okay.
All right. At Stolte Nick, have you ever had this much movement before? It was a crazy awesome week. Yes, with all sorts of stuff happening, and teams were exposed, or teams proved to us that we should have taken them more seriously. As we mentioned, 5 teams moved up 5 or more spots. 8 teams moved down 5 or more spots. I'll admit, last week I didn't know how these teams will fit together. It's one of the byproducts of not seeing much of starters in the preseason. You don't get the same vibe before week 1 that you otherwise would.
Right.
So week 1 has a lot more by way of revealing to us what a team really has.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We fall in the trap of maybe liking the teams who play the starters a little bit more through the preseason, because you just go, oh, they look good. And you just have no feel for other teams who, played starters very little. So it's hard to pin it down. The NFL is so freaking close right now. Just throughout, I mean, I talk about this with my dad all the time. I mean, man, you can boil games down a lot of times to like 3 or 4 plays. Like literally like 3 or 4 50-50 plays, and who's just got the guys to make that play as compared to the other team. And that's where it's a crazy league right now with free agency and the salary cap. The worst team and the best team it's not as the big gap that we used to see in the 80s and 90s.
Steelers at number 5. They were 14 last week. Ryan asks, I know the Steelers beat the Bills. Did they deserve to move up 9 spots when it wasn't exactly a blowout victory? This is a recognition that I had them too low. It's not a reward for beating the Bills. I thought you were going to lose by 7 or more in Buffalo. I thought Buffalo was clearly the better team. I thought the Steelers were still a work in progress. I had them too low. Their win at Buffalo in a hostile environment with a full stadium for the first time in a year and a half, it proved that the Steelers are better than I gave them credit for.
Yeah.
So it's not, hey, good job, you beat the Bills. If you would have beat them by more, I'd move you higher. No, I moved you higher because I had you too low.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Yeah, no, and the defense was phenomenal. They that fell under one of those things again, Mike, when we talk about great quarterbacks, when your front four can just get there consistently and you don't have to blitz and do anything crazy that way and compromise coverage on the back end, it's tough sledding. And the offense wasn't pretty. It was not, but there was a little patience with the run. I still don't know how good it's going to be, but at least there was some patience with it. Sometimes running attempts are just as important as the yards, just to keep a defense honest. Oh, now we got Deontay Johnson or Chase Claypool deep, which they did. We saw them stretch the field a little bit. And the one thing that, I think we always forget a little bit, and this goes back to Mike Tomlin, You've said it before. It's just they're always battle ready, battle tested. That's for sure. I know they kind of fell apart at the end of last year, but man, the Steelers fight and are ready to go every week for the most part. They had issues that went beyond, trying to fight and be battle tested last year. So we'll see where it goes, but certainly a good start.
The Browns fell one spot from number 6 to number 7. At Football Guy NFL says, why did they fall at all when they were the better team against your number 2 Chiefs for 80% of the game? I mean, they lost the game. I thought about not moving them at all. Some teams moved up in defeat, like the Cowboys. They got bumped up a spot because they looked pretty good, even though they lost to the Buccaneers. But, anytime you lose, you're at risk of dropping, especially early in the season. And it was more about bumping up the Saints ahead of the Browns and bumping up the Steelers ahead of the Browns because of the impressive showings we got there. It's a zero-sum game. If somebody bumps up, somebody's got to bump down. And for the Browns to only fall one spot after losing in Kansas City, they're still in the top 10.
Yeah.
They're still getting their respect.
Right.
And we'll see what they do week 2.
That's right. I mean, they got to reassess what they do the next time they play Kansas City. If they see them in the playoffs, they can't do what they did the last 2 times against them with the Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, like we discussed. But damn, I mean, yeah, you're right. They're still one of the 10 best teams in the game. There's no doubt. And, to our buddy there at Football Guy NFL, listen, a lot of teams outplay the Chiefs for 80% of the game. There's just an important 20% that's kind of important. And it just seems like that 20%'s in the fourth quarter all the time, and the Chiefs win. Ask the 49ers about it in the Super Bowl. I think they got a pretty good experience with it.
Yeah, if they ever play a 48-minute game, then the Chiefs may be in trouble. But as long as they play the full 60, that's when the Chiefs find a way to hit that gas pedal and score 25 points just like that. Dave Deitert, the NFC West, we have the Rams at 3, 49ers at 9, Seahawks at 10, Cardinals at 14. Dave asks, did you consider putting all 4 NFC West teams in the top 10? I mean, the problem is I had the Cardinals so low, I can't move them from 25 to 10 in 1 week. Let's see what they do this weekend. If they kick the crap out of the Vikings, they're going to the top 10.
Yeah.
Because the Vikings are a little desperate this week. The Vikings have talent. And if they can go home and play like they played in Nashville, because they're not going to catch anyone by surprise after what they did last week, but I don't think it matters. If you can't get to Kyler Murray, it doesn't matter if you know what he's going to do. If you can't touch him, you can't stop him. So I didn't consider it now, but it won't surprise me if all 4 of them end up in the top 10 sooner rather than later. At some point, they start playing each other and cannibalize.
I know.
But they still have the potential to all 4 be at or near the top 10, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, hey, for the way it looked, all 4 have playoff caliber rosters. I mean, it's a special division. It really is. Top to bottom, it is unbelievable how many studs are on every one of those football teams. And, yeah, I mean, the Seahawks were really impressive. The 49ers as well. I probably would have had the 49ers and Seahawks maybe ahead of the Chargers, who you have at 8. Okay, but, I mean, I'm not really – I mean, that's nitpicky. Only just a little more proven commodity would be my reason for that. But still a very impressive win with the Chargers. And, man, the NFC West, great Scots, Batman.
And it'll all work itself out
in
the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. That's part of the fun of this. You see where you were wrong. And I'm not going to double down and keep the Cardinals in the 20 and say it was just a fluke. If they prove me wrong, they're gonna get the corresponding bump. I like this question from Ricardo Ileskis regarding the Packers' free fall from 4 to number 15. Why punish the Packers that much? Last year they lost like that and came back strong. Of course, that's a reference to the 38-10 loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here's the difference. It wasn't in week 1.
Exactly.
And you don't have your quarterback out there saying, we were low energy in week 1. It was an alarm to me that this is no longer an elite team. To not show up for the first game of the season, to have every break fall your way. Hey, you don't have to play the Saints at the Superdome. You get to play them outdoors. Okay, it was a gift for the Packers. We were saying that last week. They got a gift by virtue of not having to go to New Orleans to play the Saints. And they still were horrendous with their lack of effort and the outcome and outclassed on both sides of the ball. So you do something like that in week 1, I think it's a lot more alarming than the stuff happens outcome that you'll see from time to time in the middle of the season.
Agreed. I mean, they were 4-0 and kind of kicking butt last year when they lost to the Bucs. They were up 10-0 in that football game against the Bucs. And Aaron Rodgers made mistakes where you could go, wait, he doesn't usually do that. That's where it was different. This was there was no mistakes to be made here. I mean, I know he made mistakes. They just got killed from get-go, both sides of the ball. So, I think you're right, and I think that's really kind of the context around the situation.
All right, next question here. I got my outline a little out of whack. Here we go. Joel Cochran, how do you put the Ravens ahead of the Raiders after Monday night? Well, look, the Ravens are still the better team. The Ravens would have won that game if they had played that game in Baltimore. The Raiders benefited from the location. And I think as the season unfolds, the Ravens will prove to be the better team. Also, the gap between the two was so much. I'm not going to force it and say, well, I have to move the team that won a game over the team that lost a game. Because I still think the Ravens are the better team. The Raiders were the better team that night. And playing at home had a lot to do with it. But, the Ravens easily could have won that game, and they arguably should have won that game.
Yeah, I respect what you're saying there. Yeah, we got to see more from the Raiders first. I mean, yeah, the Ravens lost a tough one, like you said, in a tough environment. Lamar Jackson, 2 big fumbles and some really bad situations. He doesn't usually do that. And it goes back to the proven commodity, conversation. Yeah, I mean, okay, great. I mean, the Raiders beat the Chiefs last year. It doesn't mean they go right into the top 5 of the countdown. Yeah, there's a lot of other games. That was a good matchup for them. They did a lot of good things, but I agree with a lot of your points, and I respect that you don't just make it about that. Again, I got concerns about the Ravens, and if we see some of those same issues boil up, I know you'll put the Raiders in front of them. But for right now, I'm with you. I'm not ready to say that the Raiders are a better all-around football team, than the Baltimore Ravens. Not yet. I got to see a little bit more there too.
The Bengals escaped the dregs of the power rankings by moving from 29 to 21. Rob's Ford Caps says, as a Bengals fan, I'm afraid this ranking ignores both our head coach and the fact that we don't get to play the Vikings with their 20 penalties every game. I guess you're doing something right when a fan of a team isn't calling you out. When
Seriously,
they agree
like,
or actually think that you're being too kind.
Nice.
That doesn't happen with Bengals fans with me, people. But they deserve to be at 21 after what they did. I was impressed by what the Bengals were able to do against a team that should have shown up and beaten the crap out of them. The Bengals proved to me they're not going to be among the worst teams in the NFL. One of the writers at PFT, we have our constant text chain, he said last week, hey, the Bengals should be very grateful for the Texans, or everyone would be pointing out how dysfunctional the Bengals still are. Well, they put the dysfunction aside for a day and took care of the Vikings. They deserve to be at 21. The Washington football team at 22, the Eagles at 28. Ryan Rincon says, how is Washington, who lost their starting quarterback, higher than the Eagles after Jalen Hurts played a perfect game? Look, I don't know how bad the Falcons are going to be, but when you score 6 points at home after you've hired Arthur Smith to become your head coach, I have a feeling the Falcons aren't going to be very good. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in the Eagles' win. I did move them up 3 spots. Washington fell 7 spots by virtue of losing the quarterback and losing the game. There was a big gap between the two. It's tighter now, and we'll see how it goes moving forward. I want to see what the Eagles do against better competition, and I want to see how Washington does without Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I hear you. I think those are like legit questions. I will say I think we were probably too low on the Eagles leading into the season. And
you weren't. I'll give you credit. You saw it. You saw it.
I thought they would beat Atlanta. I think the thing that we got to look at with Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts is a gamer. He really is. He's not like the best thrower in football, but he's good enough that when they're open, he's going to hit it. And then his playmaking ability in certain situations. And then the thing, I know we talked about this on our podcast last week when we picked the games. The Eagles, the one thing they got going for them, offensive line and defensive line are elite. They're elite. Their offensive line is going to blow a lot of defensive lines off the ball. And that's going to make things tough, especially when you got a quarterback like Jalen Hurts behind it. And then, like we've talked about a little bit, I'm a big believer in Shane Steichen and Nick Sirianni as far as offensive game planning. I think they're pretty good, pretty damn good that way. They got a tough one against the 49ers this week, we know. But I think that game is going to even be a little closer than people realize. I would be shocked if the Eagles don't hang around. They're not going to get pushed around with the 49ers, who are used to having that advantage on the front lines against most teams too.
Well, that'll be interesting to see if they can parlay what they did last week into a victory this week, or at least keeping it close against the 49ers, who surely will be favored. The last question is more rhetorical, and I'm not going to respond to it. We're just going to read it to you as we go to break. Trundle the Great wants to know, as it relates to the Jaguars at number 32, I see you have them falling 5 spots on the chart. My question is, Why are they on the chart?
That's awesome.
At all?
I love it. Jaguars fans and Bengals fans keeping it real here today.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.